All right. Welcome, everybody. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves. Add your name or neighborhood council or organization next to your name and pronouns if you're comfortable. And please also enter into the chat what brought you here this evening. We are the LA Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, and it is our mission to advance sustainability and resilience across the city through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and sorry about that, and community action. We have 4 active committees. They are advocacy, energy, transportation, and trees. We also have a working group that focuses on sustainability for developments. So if that's appeals to you, if you're like on a plum committee, I think we're going to get that going again this summer while we have several interns. So if that's something that is of interest to you, let us know. And these committees are really open to everybody, and that's really the heart and soul of our efforts. So please let us know if you're interested. Okay, our agenda for this evening is what we're doing right now. We're doing really quickly introductions and housekeeping, and then we're going to dive into microplastics. And then that's going to take us up until maybe 8 o'clock or so. Then we're going to hear from the committees that I was just talking about. Then we're going to have an opportunity for everybody to make announcements. And then we're going to ask you folks to let us know what you thought about the meeting. So please do let us know. We'll give you a link for an evaluation, and hope that we hear what you thought. Okay, we do have community agreements, and one of our board members this evening will put these in the chat, and we do ask you folks to follow them. If you can, please turn on your camera and show your face so that we're always building community, even in a forum like this. Please assume good intent and give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Demonstrate respect and appreciation. Refrain from having too many side conversations in the chat. We love the chat, most of us. I love the chat. I think it can be super helpful, but do be on topic. Listen intently, step forward, and then step back, meaning contribute, but also step back and let others do the same. Be concise, and of course, have fun. One other thing I want to mention is we are recording the conversation tonight, and we'll also save and probably post the chat. And we're going to be really interactive tonight. So once there's a presentation, we'll open it up, and there'll be lots of opportunities for all of us to contribute. And I'd love to introduce all of our board members tonight. Let me start with who I can see. Alex, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Tangelos. I used to be the chair of the Sustainability and Beautification Committee for the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council. I'm currently the Sustainability Committee Chair for Southern California at my law firm, and I am on the board of the LANCSA.
Thank you. And Aurora.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Aurora Corona here. I am a board member for the Los Angeles Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, and I'm also the secretary for the Pico Union Neighborhood Council. I'm glad to see everyone here.
Thank you. And Charles.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Miller. I'm on the board. I'm a liaison to the Trees Committee for the board. I am also on the Palms Neighborhood Council, where I chair the Green Committee, and I am the chair of the Los Angeles Climate Reality Project.
And Muriel.
Hi, I'm also a LANCA board member. I'm the chair of the Transportation Committee, and I used to be board member of the Echo Park Neighborhood Council.
And sometimes I forget to introduce myself, but tonight I remember. I am Lisa Hart. I'm the executive director and on the board, and I am on the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council Green Committee. Okay, before we dive in, I do want to say I'm in Oregon right now, so I feel really out of touch with what's going on in LA. But I know that there have been ice raids and there are a lot of demonstrations and things are really tense in LA right now. So I wanted to acknowledge that and say that I know there are a lot of families that are really hurting right now. And I also wanted to say that I received an email from Council Member Yaroslavsky not too long ago sharing that the ACLU has some Know Your Rights resources. And so if one of the, thank you, Alex. Alex is so on top of things. She just shared in the chat a resource that has, if you go to that link, I think you can get to a bunch of other links ideally for, know your rights if you're an immigrant. And apparently there's another know your rights, like if you're a protester, sort of thing. So we all should know our rights at this point. And I hope that's helpful to you because, and I'm hearing from, I think Alex and Aurora, a lot of us, Alex, Aurora, Muriel, and I all live very close to each other, which is not ideal. In a perfect world, we would live across the city, but we don't. And a couple of them have already shared this evening that they're hearing helicopters and police sirens and that sort of thing really close to them. So these are tense times. So, and Mark is saying, avoid detail aid tonight. So some people are like diving in and wanting to go to the protests. Some people are like, yeah, I think I'm going to stay away. Anyway, I thought we should acknowledge that because I know this is hard right now. So moving on and getting into the topic, was hoping everybody can put into the chat right now regarding microplastics what you think sources of microplastics are. I think our guest tonight, who I'm going to introduce momentarily, will tell us some of those sources, but I'd like to hear from you first, your guesses as to the sources of microplastics. So just take a minute or two and put in the chat what your thoughts as to the sources of microplastics are. So I don't see the chat blowing up. So I'm going to give you a minute. Okay, that's great. Yeah, okay. Oh, some food. Interesting. Okay, plastic bottles. Did I see something about clothing? Litter, plastic cutting boards. Yeah, I saw something about that recently. Polyester, right. Okay, interesting. Wastewater. Oh, that's interesting. Artificial turf. Yes, I hope we're gonna talk about that later because some of you know we're obsessed with artificial turf. Single-use paper cups. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Stormwater, interesting. Cars, okay. Tires, okay, I love this. Yeah, cell phones, computers, fake grass, cigarette butts. That's a good one. Cities compost. That's a really good one too. I love that. Cosmetics. Okay, this Sarah person. I want to meet this Sarah person because I think she's fish. I love that. I mean, I shouldn't say love, that's maybe the wrong word, right? But okay, this is great. Okay, now I would love to introduce our speakers, and I'm hoping one of our board members can spotlight them. Anna Cummins is the co-founder of Five Gyres, which is many of you are probably familiar with them. They're a super powerful organization that's doing so much work on this. And Dr. Victoria Fulfer is a microplastic scientist. What a cool job. They
Wish
are
we didn't
going
have to have it.
What'd you say?
I said, I wish we didn't have to have it.
I know. Well, that's such a great point. It's like the cool job that you hope we don't need in, I don't know when that's going to happen, but for a while we're going to need microplastic scientists, right? They're going to talk to us and talk with us after they've talked to us about this whole field, like why we need to think about this, where we need to think about this, and what we can do about it. So they're gonna take it away and talk to us about this, and then we're gonna open it up as we always do and have a conversation with them. So get ready with your thoughts and questions and comments, and I'm gonna give them the floor. So thank you, and thank you so much, Anna and Victoria, for taking the time to talk with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. Really appreciate your inviting us here today. I appreciate you all being here. And also, I appreciate that you're acknowledging this moment that you're in. Not that you are in, that we are all in. As a former Angelina who now lives up in Ventura County, it just breaks my heart to see what's happening. And it's a bit of a hard pivot to go from something that's so pressing in human rights to microplastics, but it's also a very important topic. And as you'll see, there are intersections around social and environmental justice that we can get into. I'm also really glad you asked the question, because as I'm seeing these answers, I'm thinking, oh, I wish we'd included this and this and this, but that's why we'll have a conversation. So as one of the co-founders and currently executive director, I'm going to just give sort of a big picture overview about how we got here, why we started Five Gyres, and then hand it to Victoria to get deep into the science. You can advance a slide or two here and keep going. So a bit of history of the organization, as well as my own personal journey into this, because I think, you know, we all have our journey of how we come to this work. I grew up in Los Angeles. I've always been passionate about sustainability, but I didn't really know about the issue of plastic pollution at all until 2001. I was already a graduate student studying environmental policy up in Monterey, which is kind of a hotbed for marine conservation, Monterey, California. And I went to a lecture completely by chance, given by a man who some folks might be familiar with. His name is Captain Charles Moore. He's the founder of an organization called Algalita in Long Beach. And I was studying environmental policy at the time. I heard his lecture called Synthetic Sea, and I was absolutely floored. It was one of those moments that we all have, like, you know, a thunderbolt sort of moment, where he talked about his research in the North Pacific Ocean, the North Pacific Gyre, and I'll describe what a gyre is. Where in 1999 he was crossing the ocean, and actually earlier than that, and started seeing just these swaths of open ocean where there was never a clean ocean. There was always a bottle cap or a toothbrush, just for, you know, for miles and miles. So I was really stunned by this and wanted to get more involved. And I wormed my way onto a research trip. And this is where I really saw what we're talking about. You know, you don't really connect with the idea that we live on an ocean planet, a water planet, until you get out into the open ocean and see that, you know, it really is vastly water as far as the eye can see. So I got invited on this research trip back in 2004 to Guadalupe Island off the coast of California, to the Channel Islands. And that's where I saw firsthand how our disposable waste, our daily parade of cups and straws and forks and bottles, were impacting seabirds, you know, far from land. Working with Charlie also led me to my now husband, Dr. Marcus Erickson, because I was, again, wormed my way onto another research trip crossing the North Pacific Ocean. Dr. Marcus Erickson was the lead researcher, and in the middle of that voyage, we had not known each other long, proposed with a little ring that he made out of garbage that he fished out of the ocean. So that sort of sealed the deal for our coming together as a couple. We quickly realized, though, that there was a big gap in the data. There was a smattering of scientific papers, some from the North Atlantic, dating back to the 1970s. So we've known about this issue for a long time. But there was very little known about the global extent of plastic pollution. So that inspired us to start Five Gyres back in 2009, with the simple goal in the beginning of going to all 5 gyres, collecting data, publishing the science, and then trying to leverage this global data to tell a bigger story around solutions. Now, quick side note, so a gyre is a natural phenomenon. Every major ocean has a gyre. It's just the rotation of the earth, the spinning of the earth, coupled with winds and currents that creates like this huge vortex in the ocean. And these are thousands of miles wide. And so floating plastics, emphasizing floating, because not all plastics float. We really have only scratched the surface of this issue. And in terms of what's on the sea floor, that's a whole other unknown. But in terms of floating plastics, these gyres act as accumulation zones. They concentrate plastics that flow into our oceans from land. And as we all know, I'm sure, plastics, the majority are made from fossil fuels. They are not biodegradable, but they do photodegrade. Sunlight and mechanical action of waves and storms will fragment larger plastics down into what we now call microplastics. And those really don't go away. So that was our mission in the beginning, was traveling to all 5 gyres, inviting interested people to come join us. And we had folks who were artists, journalists, musicians, teachers, even some folks from plastics industry who came on board, CEOs of companies. And the goal was, come on board, help us do the research, we'd publish, and then these folks would be ambassadors, go back to their communities and drive change. So we published the first global estimate in 2014. We published another updated estimate just 2 years ago, and we see that the numbers are going up from roughly 5.25 trillion particles in 2014 to upwards of 170. Now, when we look at a handful of microplastics out in the middle of the ocean, we can't tell where they're coming from. What products are they coming from? What countries are they coming from? Who do we hold accountable? And so that was the beginning of our decision to try to start a journey further upstream, because there's not much you can do to solve the problem of plastics out in the ocean. We really have to get closer to the source of the problem. So this inspired us to start looking at the Great Lakes. And I'm going to tell a bit of a story about how we can really leverage the science to drive policy change. And again, just speaking of this moment that we're in today, where many of us might feel quite down about what's happening politically, it's never been more important to do the work locally in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, while we're trying to suss out what's happening at the federal level. So we went into the Great Lakes in 2012 and 2013. We found more microplastics in Lake Erie by count than any of the oceans we'd surveyed before. And what we found, and you can see from the images here to the far left, that is an image of one slide from Lake Erie where we noticed these small plastic beads that we figured were coming from personal care products, from body washes, facial scrubs, even toothpaste, these small plastic beads that were added that were too small to be filtered out by wastewater. And this really speaks to the idea that we have to be specific when we're talking about microplastics, because you cannot solve the issue of plastic microbeads in the way that you would bags, bottles, straws. It's a different sort of intervention. So we published the science. We went right to some big companies thinking, we've got a smoking gun. Surely they will want to change their ways. What we were told by a large company, Procter & Gamble, I'll just out them, was that until we could prove without any shadow of doubt that it was their beads getting into the Great Lakes, that we needed to do more research. So again, that just really speaks to the power of science paired with advocacy, because what happened next was a large coalition from across the entire country banding together to pass a bill in California that really then became a de facto national bill. Next slide. So that ended in a victory in 2015 when President Obama signed the Microbeads Free Waters Act, which was a federal bill addressing microplastics. That really inspired us to start thinking more seriously about sources. Because again, solving for bags is going to look very different from solving for agricultural plastics, like the huge sheets of plastic that you see covering fields. So Marcus and our other scientist, Dr. Ertl, Lisa Ertl, published this paper looking at the idea of sectors of, let's look at all the sources of plastic, from toys to agriculture to textiles to personal care products, and get super specific about what source are we talking about when we're designing interventions. So I share all that as we come into a deeper conversation about microplastics, and Victoria will go deep into the science. It's important to think about, are we talking about fragmented tire dust or, fragmented other kinds of macroplastics? Because that will really inform the way we design a policy intervention or innovation. So this is really our mission, is to use science to drive advocacy at the community level, at the political level, and really try to scale the science so that we can get a handle on deeper solutions. So with that, I want to hand it to Victoria to get more specific about the science, and then we'll have a conversation.
Great. Thanks, Anna. As Lisa mentioned in her introduction, my name is Victoria Fulfer. I'm a microplastic scientist with 5 Gyres. I finished my PhD a little over a year ago, focusing on microplastics and oceanography and the impact that these microplastics have on coastal environments. And so I could talk for hours or days about microplastics, but I'm just going to scratch the surface here tonight and kind of give you a background of where the science stands right now on microplastics and their sources. I know this group was interested in human health, so we'll talk about what we're learning about that as well, and then we can have a discussion as a group. So just to make sure we all have the same baseline understanding, when I'm talking about microplastics, we're talking about small plastic fragments and fibers that are smaller than a millimeter in size and larger than a micron. So this is a huge size range. And this schematic you can see here kind of might help you better understand just how wide that size range is. So a microplastic can be as big as the diameter of a drinking straw, all the way down to the size of a red blood cell. And tonight we're also going to talk about microplastics and human health. And when we're talking about that, we'll also probably be talking about nanoplastics. So those are smaller than a microplastic. They're smaller than a micron in size, but we are finding those as well. For simplicity, I'll probably be saying microplastic, but in some cases we might be talking about that nano size range. And in this image here, this is a sample taken from where I live in Rhode Island, and you can see that microplastics come in all shapes and sizes and colors, but looking at that image, you wouldn't necessarily know what they started out as, because microplastics have a huge range of sources in the environment, and Anna mentioned this, right? So we have land-based sources and ocean-based sources. We have, fishing gear and tire wear particles. We have microplastics that have made it into the air from city dust and from our textiles and washing machines and dryers. And a lot of these, we can target, right? So we can target changing our personal care products. We can target washing machine effluent, which gets into our sewage, which then is used as fertilizer. We can look at all of these different sectors, just as Anna mentioned. And that's something that we really try to do with our science, is focus on specific sectors and try to better understand how that sector is providing a source of microplastics and what solutions might be able to be implemented to reduce that source. So I've been doing this for over 10 years, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the projects that we're doing right now and the sectors that those are working with. And so one of our first projects is plastic air. So this is focusing on the washing machine and dryer sectors. And so those textiles, in particular dryers right now. So we're looking at sources of microfiber pollution. We're looking at how textiles are designed and how that impacts how much they're shedding. A lot of the clothes we wear and the textiles we use in our homes are made of polyester or nylon, and these are plastics. And so we want to understand how much is getting out into the environment from these sources, looking at things like dryer filtration. We're looking at plastic additives as well as alternatives to plastics and different types of materials that might actually be able to biodegrade, unlike a common plastic. Another textile we're looking at, we're really focused on textile sector right now, is carpets. A lot of carpets in homes and offices are also made of nylon and polyester and are shedding out into our homes, into the air we're breathing, and then outdoors. And then finally, we're working on a solutions-based project as well, exploring nature-based solutions to try to remove some of these small particles and fibers that are in our environment. So we're looking at floating wetlands and seeing how their capacity to take microplastics out of the environment might be assessed, and see if that could be something that could be scaled up. Let's take a step back and think a little bit about all of these plastic sources. And one that I just really want to drive home are those microfibers. Often when we think about microplastics and plastic sources, we're thinking about those hard plastics, the water bottles, the plastic bags, things like this. But microfibers are a huge source of microplastic pollution to the environment, and one that has not been studied as commonly until more recently. And so these are getting out into our environment when we're washing and drying our clothes, or when we're just walking around and wearing them. We're constantly shedding these small fibers, as well as our home textiles. So our carpets, our furniture, our blinds, things like this. And of course, we also have we have synthetic fibers, but we also have natural fibers. And so a lot of our clothing might be made of cotton. Those are still shedding microfibers. And there's a lot of research coming out showing that both types of microfibers can have negative effects to wildlife. But when it comes to those plastic and synthetic microfibers, we have to also consider the additives that are the chemical additives that are put in those fibers. What we do know is that textiles, such as clothing, make up 10% of all plastic production, which is a pretty impressive number, actually. And unfortunately, textiles are the second most discarded type of plastic, and they're not often discarded in a way that is recyclable. They're discarded into the environment, and they are then able to break down and pollute more greatly. So just Americans alone generate about 16 million tons of textile waste every year, which is a massive number and is only increasing, unfortunately. And of course, not only are we generating all of this textile waste, but we are also wearing and using our clothing and washing it. And every single washing machine cycle releases about 18 million microfibers into the wastewater stream. And unfortunately, a lot of wastewater treatment plants, the way that the treatment happens, some of those microfibers are removed and are put into the sewage sludge. In many places, that sludge is then used as fertilizer, which means those microplastics are being added back into the environment. And what is not removed from the treatment is unfortunately then being released into our waterways. And so I know this group was interested in how microplastics impact human health. And this is an area that we are, that the world of science is really just getting into. And so we don't have a lot of concrete information, but we have been studying the impact on the environment and on different animals for a long time. And so it makes sense that some of those impacts we were seeing in animals, we're now starting to wonder if they're happening in people. And I'm sure you've seen the headlines that are coming out seemingly every week now that microplastics have been found in a new place in your body. At this point, they've been found in almost every tissue and organ in the body. Most of these are small microplastics, less than 10 microns in size, or larger nanoplastics that we're finding. And those nanoplastics are the ones we really need to be concerned about, because these are such small particles that they can be internalized by our skin cells, our liver and lung cells. They can pass between tissues, and they can get into our immune cells as well. So really concerning there. Some of the types that we're commonly finding in the body right now are the types of plastic that we also find in the environment and in our everyday use. So polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, and PET are the four most commonly found ones, which are also, unsurprisingly, the four most commonly found plastics that we use in our everyday lives. And what we always have to consider when we think about microplastics and nanoplastics in the environment or in our bodies are not just the particles themselves, but the harmful chemicals that have either been added to the plastic during production or that the plastic has been able to pick up as it's moved through the environment. So those chemicals adsorb to the plastic that enters our body, and then it can at some point desorb from the plastic and cause harm as well. So you all listed a lot of sources of microplastics to the world, and a lot of those sources are also how microplastics wind up in our bodies. So we have seen evidence of microplastics coming into the human body through ingestion, inhalation, and also dermal exposure, or through your skin when you are touching small microplastics. And so we have found it in all types of protein products, processed food products, and a lot of our produce, unfortunately. It's been found in baby formula and even breast milk. The use of plastic in our kitchens can be a source of microplastics to our body. It's getting into our food when we're cooking with plastic, using plastic cutting boards, or heating our food up in plastic containers. It's also been found in many of the things that we drink, everything from tap water to juices and tea. And then we have to think about not just how we're ingesting it, but also that it's in the air around us. Whether you're inside or outside, there are unfortunately microplastics and nanoplastics in the air. Inside, they're coming mostly from those textiles that are throughout your home. And then outside, it can also be from tire dust, particularly if you're in an urban area. Urban dust, if you have a large amount of people living in the same area, that can release a lot more, whether it's from the dryer vent exhaust or from that tire dust, as well as construction. And then for dermal exposure, that is happening more with those cosmetics and personal care products, some of which do still contain microplastics and nanoplastics, and can also happen with things such as toothpaste and other personal care products. Those are just some of the ways that we know microplastics are getting into our bodies. Right now, we don't know for sure the impact that it is having, but we are seeing in the studies that are coming out now, we're seeing stress responses in the cells, we're seeing changes in gene expression, and that's really concerning. And as more information comes out, I'm sure we will only, unfortunately, get more bad news there. But one thing I really wanted to make sure we highlighted today was that plastic production is an environmental justice issue. So many petrochemical plants, or the plants that are producing these plastics, are commonly built in these low-income communities and communities of color. A lot of these plants are focused in the United States in the southern regions and have been expanding up into Appalachia. And so these communities that are adjacent to these petrochemical plants are unfortunately being exposed to toxic chemicals in their air, water, and soil. And a lot of these toxic chemicals that are coming off of these plants that are making plastic are cancer causing. But in addition to the chemicals coming from the plants, many of these plants also unlawfully dump plastic pellets. You may have heard of nurdles, a fun name for a plastic pellet. So we find these all up and down waterways near plastic plants. And a few years ago, the Formosa Plastic Company was actually held liable in Texas for unlawfully dumping billions of plastic pellets and pollutants into the waterways. And so it's great that they were held liable, and more we're advocating for policies that will force companies to take responsibility for spills, whether they're dumping spills or accidental spills, and to make sure that all of their practices everywhere from production to transport are really containing these plastics. But it's still an issue. And in addition to the environmental justice issues here in the United States, we also, of course, have to think about the international injustices. America has historically shipped a lot of our waste to other countries, predominantly in Asia. And those countries often do not have the resources to properly dispose of it, which unfortunately America knew, and they were shipping the trash there. And unfortunately, many American politicians have perpetuated the stigma that the plastic pollution problem stems from Asia and it's not America's problem, which is simply not true when it's our trash that we sold to Asia to begin with. So just wanted to highlight sort of those two areas that we need to continue to work on in terms of social and environmental justice. But with all of that bad news, there are some things that you can do to reduce your own exposure and reduce microplastic pollution to the environment. So Five Gyres has an app called Trash Blitz, which allows you to log data as you clean up trash in your community. And that's a great way to participate in science and help us gain more information about where plastic litter is most concentrated, while also cleaning up an area. Reducing single-use plastics, as well as reducing synthetic textiles in your life and plasticware in your kitchen, are great easy steps to try to reduce your own personal exposure to microplastics. Of course, buying less and shopping secondhand, reducing the amount of waste that's getting out into the environment. And then taking advocacy action, which it sounds like this group is all about, which is great to hear. I wanted to highlight two of our current advocacy campaigns. So one that we've been doing for a few years now is Plastic Free National Parks. And this is a campaign that uses that Trash Blitz app to track plastic pollution through our national parks and all of our federal lands. So if you're ever near an area that is either a national park or a national historic area or any type of federal land, you can participate in this campaign to try to get us more information about plastics in these areas. And then our newest campaign is Microplastic Free US. And this is a really exciting campaign where we're trying to raise awareness and advance crucial policy change to reduce the amount of microplastics across the US. So this little QR code here will take you to our website, and we have a lot of information about microplastics, microfibers, and pellets, as well as a place where you can share your voice with your elected officials to demand a microplastic-free US. So we have a number of policy campaigns that we are working on and that we are looking forward to, and we're really hoping to try to really help communities, whether it's at the city and local level, the state level, or eventually the federal level, to really reduce microplastics getting into the environment and hold companies accountable. But in LA, you're very lucky because you are really leading the way in terms of plastic policy. So recently, about 2 years ago, in 2023, the LA City Council certified LA Sanitation's Comprehensive Plastic Reduction Program, which is really exciting because it positioned the city to lead upstream solutions for microplastic pollution and macroplastic pollution. And this plan outlined a number of different actions that the city could begin to take. And I've listed a few of them here. These include everything from washing machine filtration to phasing out single-use foodware in takeout, as well as better textile disposal policies, and even a ban on plastic tea bags. So all of these will hopefully be rolled out. Of course, things take time. All of these are on different timelines, but these are all different actions that hopefully you all can take part in making sure that they come to fruition. And if you're really interested in the plastic pollution crisis and in microplastic pollution and want to work more with 5 Gyres, we have a really wonderful ambassador network. So you can find more information on this on our website about this and how to join. We have almost 2,000 ambassadors right now from 95 countries. It's a really wonderful global community of individuals who are just interested in using whatever their expertise and passion is to take action against plastic pollution. So whether you are an artist or a budding scientist or a community advocate, you can really become an ambassador, meet a bunch of like-minded individuals, and take some action. And so that's just another way that you can join our cause. And with that, I would be very happy to take any questions or have a discussion about everything we've talked about today.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, and great, we already have some raised hands, which I always love to see. I also have like 100 questions myself. Let's start with Miran.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone.
And please, and I should have said, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but please introduce yourself before you make your comment or question.
Yeah, Miran Karachi, I'm president of Winnetka Neighborhood Council, Lake Balboa, North and South. And my question is what mechanisms are in place to hold nations or corporations accountable when they violate plastic waste regulation that contribute to microplastic pollution?
That's a great question because international law is quite hard to enforce. I mean, just starting with ocean plastics, we do have laws, international law, MARPOL, for example, that prevents dumping at sea, but the enforcement is challenging. There is good news on the horizon. Right now, we are entering into the final negotiations for a United Nations global treaty to regulate plastic. And knowing that the plastics issue is relatively recent to the global agenda, it's quite promising to see that we're even at the stage of coming up with a global treaty. You know, the devil's in the details, and getting oil producing nations to agree that we need to curb plastics use is quite challenging, but at least there's a mechanism at place to bring nations together to craft this treaty. I'm not sure if I totally answered your question because did you ask about enforcement or just more regulation?
More regulations and later on enforcement.
Yeah, I think we're in the process of it now, and it's we should know hopefully by the end of August what the result of that treaty negotiation is. So I'm
And
happy
one,
to keep Lisa
yeah,
informed as well.
thank you. And one follow-up questions. Why there is a limited research and monitoring in United States comparing to other countries such Israel and Gulf countries? They have a better limit the research monitoring. They have a different funding. Why United States is behind?
That's a relatively loaded question. Why is the US not more proactive about global monitoring when it comes to plastic in general, or more broadly, just are you talking about broad monitoring for environmental issues?
No, monitoring itself from United States globally.
Monitoring specifically about plastics?
Yes.
Well, I would say first, it's a relatively recent issue in terms of a national agenda. I mean, our publication in 2014 was the first global estimate on plastic pollution, globally. So on the one hand, this is a relatively new issue to hit mainstream consciousness. But I wouldn't say the US is historically a pioneer when it comes to monitoring industries that have a lot of influence over policymakers. Victoria, I don't mean to do all the talking here, so feel free to chime in. And I know there's lots of hands, so we might need to move to the next question.
Rosalind.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for this discussion. I think it's really, really important, and I'm glad we're having a quick.
And introduce yourself, Rosalind.
Rosalind Helfand from I'm in the district of the LA neighborhood, the Hollywood Neighborhood United Council. And my work is on environmental work. I'm on the LA City Biodiversity Expert Council. Just a quick note on the plastics treaty that it's having trouble being passed, and it is in danger of being badly watered down by those.
It will be. It'll be
not only from the fossil fuel industry, because of the fossil fuel industry influence, but also because of the chemical industry influence. I think that's something really important to note about America.
They're one and the same.
Yeah, that they're closely allied. But also, I think that it would be interesting to know, Anna and Victoria, just 3 points really quickly. One, how are you considering that? I think we need to directly say the impact of lobbying by the fossil fuel and chemical industry. I know that at the California state level and even in the city of LA, we've had a lot of really difficult time because of lobbyists using scare tactics to either create loopholes or keep us from transitioning off of plastics. And this has been happening for a long time, including tactics saying we'll just go to another material that will cause unsustainability issues instead of pushing reuse. And the second point is I think that I'm curious about how we're considering the impact of budget issues. So like you mentioned, LA sanitation and LA's progressive work, but we're now looking at a completely undercut budget for LA sanitation. So not only do they not have budget to implement the work, they don't have budget to do a communications campaign across the city around the work. So there's no way to talk to people. And they certainly don't have budget to help businesses transition to more sustainable methods. And then third, you talked about, you were emphasizing that we don't know about the impact of the plastics, the microplastics, but we do know that a lot of the chemicals released by the microplastics, especially when they're combined with like PFAS, do have health impacts. So how are you also accounting for that in your work? Thanks.
Might need a refresher on, because that was a lot. I'm not sure if we can tackle all three with the other hands, but Victoria, why don't I give you a chance to start, because there were several questions embedded in there.
Yes. I'll start with.
I told you this is a very smart, very knowledgeable group, and they're gonna, yes.
Yes, so you mentioned the impact of budget cuts. Like, yes, we're very aware that across the US in general, budget cuts are really impacting and just short-circuiting a lot of both plastics work and just environmental work in general. And so I don't know that we have any strategies specific for right now for LA specifically for that plan, other than just keep pushing and keep hoping that you know, if we keep talking about it and keep reminding people that it's important, that when that money comes back, it will be a priority, and that people will ask it to be a priority. But unfortunately, we can't do much about the budget cuts. And I am forgetting your second question, but I know your last one was about human health impacts and the impact of those chemicals. Yes, you're absolutely right. Those two are entirely intertwined, and it's difficult to study one without the other. And that is why, you know, it is so complicated to understand the true impact of microplastics, because there are thousands of chemicals that are added to plastics, many of which are harmful both to humans and to the environment. And so, you know, I really think what we need is a targeted global research approach to try to tackle these questions. But I just don't think we're there right now, unfortunately, at least not in the US.
And my first was on the dealing with the petrochemical and chemical lobbies.
Yeah. Just to level set, we're an organization of 10 people. So, you know, taking on something like lobbying is enormously complicated. It would address Citizens United. It would address the undue influence that corporations have over our policymakers. So as an organization of 10 people, what we've tried to do is figure out what is our lane, how can we contribute. We're part of many coalitions ranging in size from Reusable Los Angeles to national coalitions to global bodies. So when you have an issue as complex as climate change, as plastic pollution, it's important to figure out like, where can we contribute value and to try and stay in that lane. So what I think makes Five Gyres a bit different from some of the other advocacy groups is that we do firsthand research. So what we're trying to do is figure out how can we as a small and nimble team drive research that could have some sort of a policy implication. So yeah, taking on lobbying is not within our purview, but our hope is that we can keep chipping away at the science to keep driving policy change. And, you know, what else can we all do? I did want to hone in, you said something about like regrettable substitutes or something like that. And I know there's other hands, but this is a big issue. So could you ask a little bit more about where you were going with that?
McKinsey and Company issued a big study that was used to influence policymakers to pull back on plastic controls, saying that if we got rid of plastic, then people would just switch to using more aluminum or things like that, and therefore therefore we should use plastic longer as a quote transition material.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought you were sort of going down the bioplastics road, and I don't know if there's other questions here. We feel strongly refill, reuse are the gold standard, but that with an issue as complex as plastic, there is not a single solution. Refill and reuse work for some sectors, not for others, but maybe we can get into that in a little bit.
All right, thank you. Zoom user. Are you there, Zoom user? If not, I will move and we can come back to you, Zoom user. Oh, go ahead. Looks like you are there. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think that's me. I was
Yes,
just wondering, for commercial
And introduce
use-
yourself, please.
I'm sorry. My name is Elvina Beck. I'm the president of the Central Hollywood Neighborhood
I
Council.
didn't
Yes.
recognize you. Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
I don't know why
ahead.
it says Zoom user. It should say Elvina Beck. I'll change that.
And go ahead, introduce yourself. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Start over. Go ahead.
So my name is Elvina Beck. I'm the president of the Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council. Thank you for your presentation. Very informative. I wanted to ask about the commercial uses for plastics, like such as oceanworks.co. I'm not sure if you're familiar with their work, but they take ocean-bound plastic and they clean and pelletize it for companies to use. So I was just wondering, like, could that be a way that we commercialize or make something like this more profitable? And like, do you know of other organizations like Oceanworks in Santa Monica and Zurich and Boston? Or what can you say about like companies reusing the plastic as an incentive?
A bit wary of the term ocean bound because it's been tossed around a lot, and it sort of connotes for most people that we're out like hauling plastics out of the ocean and turning it into usable products, when really oftentimes it's plastic that was destined for the recycling stream that's called ocean bound because it might have wound up in the ocean. I mean, in general, yes, we need all of the above. We need to reuse, we need to repurpose, we need all of those things. That is not going to stop the flow. And that is not in the long run, a sustainable solution. I mean, even for the groups that are actually retrieving plastics that are dirty, mixed, contaminated, it gives people this false sense that like, oh, that's the solution. So we can, we can focus less on source reduction. So I cautiously would say that there are some legitimate uses for recovering and repurposing, but it can be a little bit of a distraction. Victoria, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that was great. I think you got it.
You know, I'm going to chime in on that. We are a pretty active member of Reusable LA, which is a coalition co-led by 5 Gyres and Heal the Bay. And in that coalition, I've learned a ton, just a huge ton being a participant. And I think what I've learned that folks in that coalition are warier. Yes, what Anna just said is I've learned to be very wary of those efforts.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to approach it.
Maybe I can offline with you ladies after this, not to take up any more time, but I was considering a manufacturing with like a marine plastic pelletized through them, but maybe if there's some other option, not to take up any more time here, but maybe you can point me in the
Happy
direction.
to, like,
Thank you.
yeah, and my husband Marcus would love to go deep on this topic with you, I'm sure.
And we've
Perfect. I'll
talked
follow up.
about we've actually in Reusable LA, we've called these things, efforts like this a sticky issue, because there's not really agreement even within the Reusable LA coalition about efforts like this. And we've talked about having actually within the LA NCSA, the Sustainability Alliance, an event just on stuff like this, because it is complicated and it's complicated.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol.
Yes, Carol Henning, Sierra Club, Vertigo Hills group of the Angeles chapter. I've been wondering for a long time about glossy paper and the sort of overlay that they put on cardboard. For example, when you buy something frozen, it's in a box, and the inside of the box is cardboard, but the outside is this glossy stuff. You get some mail. In the envelope, there's paper that's not shiny, sort of paper like this that I've been writing on, and then there'll be an ad or something important that they put on glossy paper. Now, how much plastic, if any, is in this glossy paper and glossy cardboard?
I have tried to figure that out for so long, so I'm so glad you're asking this question. And I've asked, and I feel like the answer keeps, I don't know, I haven't pinned this down, so thank you.
I'll share an anecdote and then I'll give it to Victoria. My anecdote is, so we've been for the last 10 years doing research on different biomaterials, bioplastics, looking at their degradation in the field. And one of the studies that we did, we looked at, those eco-friendly coffee cups that are made from paper that you see. After 12 months or so, paper was completely gone, but what remained, and I see this in my own backyard compost pile, was this sort of plastic shell, plastic liner. So you're absolutely right. A lot of our paper products, which look more environmentally friendly, are coated with synthetics and are often coated with plastics and different polymers. Victoria, I saw you coming off of mute.
I was going to say something very similar. It's really complicated because some of those glossier cardboards or papers might be coated with a resin, which would be a more natural coating or a clay-based coating. But many of them are a polyethylene film that is coating them. And unfortunately, they don't tell you which is which on the packaging, right? They're not going to say that. And so I always just try to be cognizant of it if I'm going to be using anything that has that, but a lot of it is unfortunately plastic. Yep.
So can any of this glossy stuff actually be recycled?
If it's plastic coated paper is not recyclable, no.
Of course not. But how do you, well, okay. So it's impossible to know really, from what you say, what it is exactly.
Yeah. Tough to know.
Without testing it, you wouldn't know. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, no wonder the answer keeps wiggling around. Oh my gosh, okay. AJ. AJ, yeah, okay, there. Oops, wait. AJ, there we go.
Sorry about that. I'm getting used to my doing Zoom on my phone, but first off, thank you all for the presentation. One
And
thing that
introduce yourself, please.
Oh, apologies. My name is AJ. I'm the LA NCSA Energy Committee Chair. Also by occupation, a commercial project manager for grid alternatives and solar plus energy storage and in the construction space. So one thing that caught my ear was I guess microplastics being an issue in the construction space. Just curious to know what the findings are specifically, like where in construction, because I think that typically comes up in our OSHA training. And I'm also just curious on the conversation around that and just kind of strategies for that is, I mean, that's a very fast moving industry.
Were you, okay, go for it, Victoria, and I can
Yeah.
add.
So your first question about what some of those sources are, a lot of different materials, everything from paints. So many paints are plastic based, a lot of synthetic insulation, siding, flooring, carpets, all of that, a lot of roofing materials. And so, of course, as any of these break down, they're releasing microplastics, but also during the construction process, a lot of microplastics are being released. Just last week, my neighbor was having their siding redone on their house, and it's that plastic synthetic siding, and they're cutting it with the saw, sawing through it. And I'm just thinking about how all that dust coming off the saw is actually just microplastics. And so a lot of the way that we do construction, unfortunately, does release microplastics. I do think that should be a higher health concern in terms of that sector and that industry. Did that answer both parts of your question?
Yeah, for the most part. I know it's not an easy one, but thank you.
Yeah, it's not a sector that we have like delved deeply into from any kind of a advocacy standpoint, with the exception of paint. Looking into the microplastics in paint. Right now, we're running a bill in California to address microplastics. But yeah, it's not a sector that we've gone really deep on.
Okay, thank you. Laura.
Hi there. So I have a more,
And Laura, introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Laura Myers, along with Elizabeth. I'm with United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council. I have a more neighborhood council-y sort of question. What is the status, if there is any status, of actually implementing, the city actually implementing any part of the comprehensive plastics reduction program? I mean, I know the EIR was adopted, but have there been any forward motions on any of it? And I'm thinking, Lisa, you're the one to answer.
Yeah, Lisa's the one to answer. Our policy director, Allison, is not here today. She could talk to you for an hour about the peer implementation, but
So my understanding is a lot of work is actually happening on the LA Sand side now. So it is moving forward. I actually wasn't able to attend, but they are collecting information. They've held some workshops like on printer cartridges, and all this stuff takes time, but they are doing the work, and it's happening behind the scenes. So it doesn't look like I just looked at the council file in preparation for this meeting, and it looks like nothing's happening, but work is happening on the LA Sand side. And I'm actually not, I don't participate in the policy committee meetings that Reasonable LA holds, but they're working people like Emily from Heal the Bay and Allison from Five Gyres are working very closely with LA Sand and very well with LA Sand. That's one of those not common enough, very good, strong collaborative relationships. So we're feeling really good about that. My concern, to be candid, is that although those relationships have been very good and we've gotten what we've needed so far from City Council and from LA San, is the enforcement piece. because these, or we've gotten the ordinances that we've wanted, but there's been no, the enforcement piece hasn't happened at all. So we want to see that. I will say, I want to see that part be addressed if we can,
Lisa,
going forward.
could you say more about that? Like for like an example of where enforcement is needed?
Well, and I'm gonna forget I get confused on this, so I'm gonna get this a little bit wrong probably. But for example, in LA, we have, you know what, I should have brought my cards. My purse is too far away from me right now. But we have these really, really cute cards that I keep in my purse and that I hand out when I go to restaurants that say what, and maybe somebody here has one, but that say what is illegal in the city of LA,
Right.
because at this point right now, we're not. It is actually against the law for restaurants to be handing out any of the extra stuff like condiments and plastic forks and stuff, unless you as a consumer ask for them. But restaurants regularly, consistently are always still handing them out, even though it's against the law. And nothing is being done about it. Nothing is being done about it. There is effectively zero enforcement. Yeah, and you can get those cards. You can go to the Reusable LA site. There's a link, board members, if you can put that, there's not a link. I didn't put in a link exactly to that, but I did put a link to reusablela.org, I think is what it is. So if we can put that in the chat, you can find a way to get those cards pretty easily from there. And they'll send them to you. Emily actually will send those cards to you for free. And they're really cute in handing. They're a really nice, polite way to engage with restaurants about this issue. And the reason we're doing that is because there's just zero enforcement. And part of it is funding. Back to whoever asked, I don't remember who asked about funding. There is no funding for enforcement.
Okay. Well, Laura's question is it comes to what can neighborhood councils do? But it occurs.
Well, you could do a total community engagement program using these cards and education.
Sure.
So that would be so fun for us to work on with you on this. Like that would be super fun. I would love to do that.
Well, one thing is, I don't know about other neighborhood councils, but anytime Ciclavia is anywhere sort of in or near UNNC, we have a booth. And it's really hard to figure out what to hand out because handing out
amazing.
Hotchkies
It'd be
makes
such a great idea as to hand out these cards.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be an amazing, amazing, amazing thing to do.
But
I
first
mean, I'm always handing out the cards.
First, we'd have to have them. Okay, and then I'm just going to put my little 5 cents in on reusable ink cartridges. It sounds like a really great idea, except for one thing. Imagine how many printers then end up in our landfills, because all of the printers we buy these days, you can't use reusable cartridges. They kind of have these computer chips that recognize if you're using anything except the ones they want you to use. So if we end up having to have a printer that uses reusable cartridges, we're going to need new printers. Printers are cheap. They're $150. So what are people going to do with the other printers? Because they're going to have to buy the new ones. I'm just saying there's always a catch.
Well,
and
that's
to me, a big one.
And I didn't attend the meetings, but LASAN was wanting to engage with folks on that.
Yeah.
So they'll take your feedback, I'm sure. I mean,
Right, and I see what Charles just put in the chat, and those printers are designed only to last a couple of years at the most. Yes. And every time they have an upgrade, it's a new kind of ink cartridge, so that you now have leftovers, 10 or 12 leftover cartridges that you can't do anything with. So the ink is still inside, and you have to dispose of them. I'm just saying it's a big problem from every direction, but that's it. I'm going to let everybody else with hands up now.
Fair enough. Yeah. What it says, step forward, step back. Perfect. Very good modeling, Laura. Thank you. Sarah, I loved everything you were throwing into the chat. So it's great to see a connected face to a name. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Merabani. I'm not part of any councils. I live in Beverly Grove East neighborhood. And I want to thank you all for organizing this webinar. I have a lot of questions, but in the interest of time, I will just ask one question, and that is related to synthetic fibers and like our clothing. And I know that the best would be to you know, source reduction and ideally not have any synthetic fibers or clothes. But we have them and we are using them. A lot of people are still using them. I know there was a bill at the state level to require washing machines to have filters, but that was vetoed. And I think in one of the slides, you guys talked about LA, city of LA doing something about it. I was curious if you guys are aware of any like filters that individuals can buy and install for their own washing machines. And if not, are there any efforts at the sanitation district levels, like where the wastewater and is it possible to have filters there? Yeah, so my questions.
I had the same question about me as an individual, as a renter and an owner, both. So thank you for asking.
That's a Victoria question because this is your arena.
Yes, there are some that are on the market that you can install on your own machines. I know more about the dryer side than the washing machine side, but I know at least for the dryer ones, they're really easy to install. They're really cheap. The most expensive one is $50. The cheapest is $15, and they work really, really well. Of course, it is one more thing you have to make sure you're cleaning out in order for it to not be a hazard and throwing that in the trash, not washing it down the drain. But there are ones that can be bought, and I can throw some of those in the chat if you're interested. And since they are already available to consumers, I am hoping that if more people start using them and advocating for them, that will also help when it comes to those citywide requirements.
Thank you. That would be amazing. And there are ones for washers or less so, or?
I'm aware of fewer available for washers on the consumer side, but I do believe I can think of at least one that I can share.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And to Sarah's other question on the like city scale, I guess that's not a possible thing for like LA Sand to put like a huge one at Hyperion or something. Like it doesn't work that way, I guess.
I think that would be a little bit more difficult. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Forbes. I'm a new member of the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council. You know, I can't think of anywhere that we don't have plastic, and modern society is built on plastics. You know, they're in everything, you know, from our transportation to modern medicine to our daily lives and the clothes we have on our back. So you know, I know the Sustainability Alliance has been trying to ban AstroTurf for ages, something that seems so simple. But if there were one or two sectors of a product or products that we could remove from our daily lives that would improve our health, are there things that you can suggest? For example, wearing cotton instead of poly or something like that.
Yeah, I think we could probably both speak to this. Someone had mentioned earlier they'd seen something about microplastics in our kitchen. You may possibly have seen Victoria doing a piece on the Today Show about just all the plastic use in our kitchens, the cutting boards, and how these are migrating. She can say more about that. I would say if there was one area, you know, when we have done trash blitz projects, and that's mobilizing a community to look at the plastic footprint in that region. We did it in Los Angeles pre-pandemic, and we've since done these in Denver, in Austin, Texas, in Miami. Consistently, it's food and beverage related plastics and packaging that are top on the list. So I would say just in terms of like direct contact with things that we're ingesting, drinking, that would be the sector I would look to address first. Cotton is complicated because it sounds like it would be the better choice. And at the same time, oftentimes our cotton and other natural fiber products contain dyes that have toxic materials. So it's not enough to just look for natural fibers. It's also the next step is looking at what are they treated with, what are they coated with. So it's, yeah. Victoria.
Oh, you took mine.
You can embellish because you have the science and you did that great piece on the Today Show.
Yes, I would definitely say in terms of personal exposure to microplastics, reducing it in your kitchen and in your food products as much as possible is so important. It also really sends a message if you're not buying food that's packaged in plastic, if you're opting for things that are packaged as little as possible. Not only is it better for your own health, but it's also supporting businesses that have that alternative eco-friendly packaging or unpackaged, and sending a signal to those major corporations that you don't want your food packaged in plastic. And please never use a plastic cutting board. And if you have one, throw it away tonight, please. I'll send you a wooden cutting board.
Use bamboo. Thank you.
Fred.
Hi, Fred Kuhns, Mar Vista Transportation Infrastructure and Sustainability Committee and LANCSA Energy Committee. Definitely reducing production and single use is really important, but given that we have so much plastic around, what's your perspective on the current state of recycling, and especially some of the commercial outfits like Ridwell that have come in and offer to recycle things that municipal recycling doesn't cover?
I'm going to say up front, that's on the sticky issues list with reusable LA, just so you know.
Yeah, I can't say that I can't speak to Ridwell. I don't know that organization. I don't live in Los Angeles anymore. What I will say is I don't think that this group here would see recycling as the solution. I have a feeling that this is a very informed group. I'm sure most of you have heard something about the breakdown, that recycling never really worked to begin with, but that Band-Aid was ripped off big time when China stopped. They instituted the national sword, the green sword, to stop taking our dirty mixed recycling. And Victoria spoke to that in her slides about how we have exported waste. Recycling has been a solution that's been promoted by industry to perpetuate producing more stuff. So I don't think any of us see that as the solution, but sorry, I'm rambling a bit here. And your question was specifically.
Well, there's certain things that are sort of hard to totally get away from, like, for example, LED light bulbs, or when you go to the pharmacy and you get a prescription, they give it to you in a tiny plastic bottle, which is too small to be accepted by municipal recycling. So things like that.
I want to say word to the tiny little bottles that slip through the recycling cracks. I did put in the chat earlier that biomaterials, bioplastics are a thorny, sticky subject because there's been a lot of greenwashing here. There have been bioplastics that haven't really worked. And yet at the same time, we feel strongly that there's great promise and a need for alternative materials that are not fossil fuel based. We just did a panel event with the Carbonauts up in San Francisco with the innovators from a couple different promising bioplastic companies. One called Clement Packaging is looking to address that very problem, that there are these small items that are just too small. They're going to slip through the system. They're not ever going to be recaptured. And that could be a good use case for a material like a biomaterial, more of a plant-based plastic. But I'd say if you're doing your best to source reduce and you're coming up against these challenges, first of all, you're doing a great job. Second of all, those challenges I think are ripe for advocacy and policy and the kinds of things that a neighborhood council could take on.
Thank you.
Mary.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm Mary Becker. I serve on the Green Committee of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. I'd like to hear more about creating floating wetlands to capture microplastics.
Yay. So we know that natural wetlands, whether they're salt marshes or freshwater marshes, are really, really good at filtering pollutants. We've been using them to filter excessive nutrients for decades. We know that they filter heavy metals and chemical pollutants really well. And in my work during my PhD, I found that they hold 10 to 50 times more microplastics than the surrounding water and in non-vegetated areas. And so we really wanted to try to use that idea to put wetlands, floating wetlands, which are kind of rafts that a wetland will grow on in an area where there isn't currently a marsh. So they can be put in ports and industrial areas where you're going to have a lot of pollution, or they can be put off a personal dock. And there's a lot of options there. But the idea is that they're out for a year or less. The plants grow, they trap those microplastics in the vegetation and in that biofilm, and then they are harvested so that those microplastics are taken out of the environment. And so that's something we're just piloting right now. We have 4 wetlands deployed here in Rhode Island, and we're really hoping that it works out well and that we might be able to get a working group together to see what other types of green infrastructure solutions there could be.
Thank you. Carolyn.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Labolia with the Brentwood Neighborhood Council. I'm Chair of Brentwood Neighborhood Council. Is there a list of alternatives or personal care products or of items that are preferred to use? Maybe that aren't plastic free, but that have less than others, or somewhere we could look up products and see which is worse than the others or better than the others?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's databases out there like Environmental Working Group, Skin Deep, that will rate your products more from a chemical standpoint. I'm not sure I've seen a comprehensive database for alternatives to plastic products per se. We've been working on a series of studies called Better Alternatives, really looking into that bioplastics question of like which materials are well suited for specific applications and which ones are actually breaking down in the environment. And in our most recent one, we have listed out like good, better, and best alternatives, but it's not a comprehensive database. I wonder if our colleagues from the Plastic Pollution Coalition, because I see that they're here and that they have their hand raised, might know of a database like that. Or Victoria, if you've seen anything like that.
I can jump in first really quick. I just put a link in the chat that I really like to use. It's a website that allows you to kind of search for any product that you might be using, and it kind of lets you know what's in it, and it highlights synthetics that are in it. And so if you're ever buying especially a personal care product and you want to know if there's any synthetic plastics in it or even chemicals, it's always fun to look it up on there.
Thank you.
That's awesome, Victoria. See, we need the younger generation here for these things.
I can add to it a little bit too, Anna. It's Deanna Cohen from Plastic Pollution Coalition. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself for a minute on my phone. I go to Made Safe and Made Safe certified when I want to look for products that are, toxic free in terms of the chemicals that they use to make them. But they also tend to work with companies like True Botanicals or Kate McLeod. There are a lot of companies that have joined Plastic Pollution Coalition too in the last 5 years who are packaging things without plastic using glass, bamboo, etc. And then we also just started working with a website that's called Done Good. And we're also doing a bunch of recommendations there. And I can try and find the link. I'm not sure how handy it is, but, there are companies that are really doing the right thing is what I would say. Five Gyres works with them. We work with them. And I think that's very worthwhile for people to look for plastic-free options that are also not full of toxic chemicals.
Yeah. The tricky thing, I think, or one of many tricky things is making these products accessible and affordable. There are products that are clean and, not packaged in plastic. Until we have regulation that levels the playing field, though, with plastics being so artificially cheap, these products tend to be, not always, but tend to be, a little bit more expensive, or not as easily accessible. So.
Well, can I just add one other thing to the whole conversation earlier, which is I'm a really big fan of farmers markets, open farmers markets, and bringing my own bag and baskets when I go to them. So to me, it's just like also a fun challenge to go meet the farmers that are local to wherever it is you're based and find out who maybe they package something, and maybe you can say to them, if I bring you a glass jar next week, could you bring that back to me in a glass jar if it's sauce for tamales or whatever it is. I think there's a really fun way to engage locally at the community level, and that doesn't have to be cost prohibitive.
Yeah, well, and just living in a community where we don't really have farmers markets, or when we do, the community I live in now is, I'd say, 70 to 80% Spanish speaking, largely farm worker, first generation. Like those are just not accessible, affordable options. And so again, we need to level the playing field. But I'm with you, Deanna. I love farmers markets. I love the challenge. I love, being able to bring in my own stuff to places. But we need these options to scale, and in order for them to scale, we need policy change.
I agree with you 1,000%, Anna.
Of course you do. I mean, we're on the same page. Back to you, Lisa.
All right, thank you. Michelle.
Hello, this is John and Michelle.
Hi.
Hales. We're active in South and Winnetka. I have something I think is very important to share with you. This group all of a sudden hit some beautiful musical notes to me and my wife. And I think one of the groups, this is a very active group. It's called the Buy Nothing Group. It is in 40 nations worldwide. Reducing it down to the city-wise is Northridge and Porter Ranch. Has roughly almost 4,000 people active. The sole purpose is that when you are look in your garage, you buy a new washer, you don't throw it away. You post it online. Once you register, post it online, whether it's shoes, lawnmower, cars, anything, you post it online and somebody will want it. They come and get it. There's no costs involved, but the activity that goes on there is amazing. And I think I want to make sure that I point out to these people some of this microplastic issue is critical, because this activity that they're going through actually saves items from going to the junkyard, landfills. So it's something, the Buy Nothing group, they're all over.
Absolutely. Love that group.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John. That's a great point. All right. Well, I think this is a great conversation, and it's just about 8 o'clock. So that works out really well. And I think we are probably ready to transition to our committee reports, if that works for folks. Thank you so much, Anna and Victoria. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Wait. Terry, you should have talked about artificial turf. Can you just say, I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but that's one of my strengths.
Well,
I'll just quickly say, as most people know on this call, we are working to get a ban on artificial turf. We're working in Los Angeles. We work with a council member at Bloomingfield's office, have a council. And can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Terry Saucier, Tarzana Neighborhood Council, Climate Reality, and a couple of other things, and SoCal Stop Artificial Turf Task Force. Love to work with you more closely. We're trying to get legislation passed to ban it. We're working with the neighborhood councils. We're working with council members. We helped get organizations together, have a sign-on sheet with more than 50 organizations. You guys are on our sign-on sheets. Thank you. And we are continuing to work with the city agencies. Climate Emergency Mobilization Office has already submitted a report asking for a moratorium on installations until the studies that are requested in the council file are done. And they list a number of the things that are wrong with artificial turf and the plastics. LA Sanitation has a preliminary report that's not out yet, but they don't want artificial turf in the environment as well. And we are still trying to educate LAUSD, Rec and Parks, sports teams, parents, anyone who might think or happy that we need artificial turf for whatever reason. And so anyone on here, if they want more information, to please reach out to us and to get involved. And I'll put some of the links in the chat to the artificial turf page for LANCSA and that type of thing.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's just got to be a huge, I mean, we have some data on this, but it's just got to be such a huge source of microplastics. And in our waters, because that's, it's outside. It's like plastic, like I think Terry said this in the chat. It's like carpet, but outside. And it's not even pretending not to be plastic. It's like evidently plastic. And then it breaks down outside and then it ends up in our waters. It's just a nightmare. So I don't know, Anna, if Victoria, if you have any last words that you want to share, and if you want to say any last words connected to artificial turf, we'll give you the floor for a moment and then we'll let you go. And thank you so, so, so much. I think this was a really good, if disheartening, conversation. But I guess, Anna and Victoria, my last thoughts are, at least right now, there's so much attention to the microplastics part. So maybe for you, that's heartening because there's a lot of attention on this issue right now. And so that's probably good news.
Yeah, let's hope that, the action follows the awareness, and just thinking about where we were on this issue 10 years ago and where we are today with the science, the policy, the advocacy, the knowledge. We just ran a national survey. This is a new thing. We've never done this before with support from one of our corporate partners, and we'll be releasing the results of that in July. But just to assess, what do people know about microplastics in this country? Do they care? And the results have been really interesting. I mean, people do know about microplastics and they do care and they want solutions. So that is heartening. And just, one final thing on artificial turf, because that's something we've thought about. It's not a sector we've hit head on, although we did a little bit of research in LA a handful of years ago. That could potentially be, I mean, it's tricky because then people make the drought and water argument. That could be one of those use cases where the right biomaterial could be a good application. I mean, and I emphasize the right. Things like PET water bottles are not a good application for bioplastic because they're recyclable. But there are products out there. I live on land now and I am required to weed whack. And things like weed whackers, BB guns, things that have no recovery plan. There's no way to get back, the fragments of microplastic from a weed whacker. There's no way to retrieve BB gun pellets that kids are shooting out. So those could be the kinds of products that could lend themselves to a biomaterial where they'll be benign in the environment because there's no recovery plan.
So we would actually disagree with you on that. So we should have a continued conversation because yes, we would, we should talk.
Okay, I would love to. Victoria, final words?
Yeah, I completely agree that the attention that microplastics and the plastic problem is being given is one of the silver linings to all of the information that's coming out there right now. The more we know, the more action will have to eventually be taken. I don't have a lot of hope that the US will be leading that charge, but hopefully we can eventually at least catch up once the rest of the world is doing that. And, I think groups like this are really wonderful to talk to because it's nice to see so many people who want to learn about this and want to learn about what they can do.
All right. Well, thank you. It was really lovely to have this conversation. Thank you so much. And let's move to our committee reports. And it always takes me a minute to pull up my slides. So bear with me while I try to figure that out. Yeah, it's going to take me a minute. So I'm going to try to remember. Oh, the city budget. Is there anybody here who can talk about the city budget while I try to get the slides up?
So,
No?
You want me to chime in?
Who's that?
Glenn.
Glenn, sure. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, on Friday, Mayor Bass approved the budget. There was some question if she might do some line item. I think I understand that there's a request she's made for additional police hiring, but she basically signed off on the version that the city council approved. Generally, city council kind of rubber stamps what the mayor does. This year, there was quite a bit of adjustments. So,
And Glenn, I'm sorry, could you please introduce yourself? I suppose everybody here knows you, but perhaps not.
they may not. All right, Glenn Bailey. I'm on 2 neighborhood councils. I'm involved with the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils, LA Neighborhood Council Coalition, and the reason I chimed in here is I'm co-chair of the Neighborhood Council Budget Advocates. I did put into chat, just in terms of the budget and our annual event, we are going to have the mayor, the city controller, the chair of the City Council Budget and Finance Committee, who's new in that role. Let's see, and the president of the City Council plus the CAO, Matt Szabo, at Neighborhood Council Budget Day on Saturday, June 21st, 9 a.m. down at City Hall with breakfast and networking starting at 7:30. It's the second largest Neighborhood Council gathering other than the Congress of Neighborhoods. So if you put that in chat, go to our website. You can register. We will have breakout sessions after the keynote speakers and the panel discussion, and that would be a great opportunity to bring up issues within each of the regions, neighborhood council regions, that have budget-related impacts or city services impacts. So I hope there'll be some representation there for that.
Okay, I would like to say a bit more about the city budget. Honestly, Mayor Bass's first version, her draft budget gutted virtually everything connected to the climate. Maybe that wasn't really intentional, but it felt pretty intentional. Also, there were 1,600 staff positions removed. I don't really understand how it worked, but the Budget and Finance Committee worked really hard and reduced that to 600 positions removed, down from 1,600. Also, they managed to restore most, but not all of the climate positions. So the Climate Emergency Mobilization Office is restored, although I think they have a rocky road ahead of them. The climate adaptation, missing a word. I don't think Melanie's here, so she's not going to be able to remind me. Plan is, the funding for that is cut in half. I think 50 million for decarbonization plans are cut. So a lot of things are hurt, but somebody had to find $800 million. So a lot of things are cut. Regarding the public bank, 3 council members pledged small portions of their own discretionary funds to fund the feasibility study. So it's only think like maybe toward 10% of what they need for that feasibility study. So it's kind of symbolic, but it's something. And I think a public bank really would be enormously helpful because it's one of those things that would save the city money and go toward a lot of climate-oriented efforts. Anyway, there's a lot more to be said about the city budget, but we don't have time here. Artificial turf, do you want to say any more about that, Terry?
I think we covered it. If people are interested in learning more, please contact us or getting more involved. We always can use people to help advocate. So thank you.
Okay. Landscaping for wildfire resilience, that's been a bit of a bumpy road here. I don't think I'll go into that here, but anyway, it's been a bit of a bumpy process, but I think going forward, we'll see something, in the next, within the next year, I think we'll see something better on that front. Charter reform, if a board member could please put in a link for the Charter Reform Commission website, that would be great, because if you want to be on the Charter Reform Commission, you can apply. It doesn't mean you'll be on the Charter Reform Commission, but you can apply.
The Charter Reform has a meeting, I believe, next week.
Yes. I think that, I don't know when it is. I've been out of town and missing meetings, but there is an upcoming meeting. So that's pretty exciting that Karen Bass, I think about 6 months late, has finally made her appointments. So it's finally able to get off the ground. Democracy vouchers, we have worse news for that. We were one of many organizations to support this very exciting effort behind democracy vouchers, which would really do wonders to broaden the opportunities for more people to get involved in elections and for more people to run for elections and to bring in a broader range of people running for and participating in elections. But we're running up on 2 years since the motion was introduced, and I think it's the CAO's office is overdue on a report, and so it's going to expire in about 5 days. And we've submitted another letter begging them to just submit something to the council file to keep it alive. And I don't know that anything's going to happen. So this is an example of something I would love to be addressed by the Charter Reform Commission to fix how screwed up our city government is. Because this happens far too often, that great motions in council die in city council. Okay, that's enough for me. But Laura, you were raising your hand. Did you want us to chime in? Laura, are you there? No, okay.
I was going to ask Len a budget question, but it's really not a Sustainability Alliance budget question.
Okay, then then thank you. You're stepping back, which I appreciate. Let's move on to energy. Go ahead, AJ.
Thank you. So just 3 quick bullet point items, and Lisa might need your support to add a little more context. But the very first one was our committee's been following the motion around rules 1,000, 111, and 1121, which is related to the push for residents throughout LA County, which is also affecting the city of LA, that when things like their gas water heaters go out, to make the switch to basically electric heat pumps. So according to an email from one of our committee members, it looks like that motion did not, or the votes were 5 out of 7, which means that it's back to committee. So right now we are working our efforts to see if we could get it back out of committee. Lisa, do you want to chime in context and just give quick background around that, because you're a little more qualified to do that?
So this is actually not, this is not with city council. This is a South Coast AQMD thing. So we actually haven't taken a position on this, and maybe we should have, but we didn't. And this is a huge disappointment. This is a huge disappointment. I only found out about it today, although I guess Dan sent an email a few days ago. I can try to be succinct about this. We did have a meeting about this. It was supposed to be in January, but it was delayed because of the fires. We had a meeting about this in March. Basically, we really have to electrify, you guys. We really, 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 really have to electrify because of the climate crisis. And our buildings, I think second to our transportation sector, are the biggest contributor to emissions in California. And there was the South Coast AQMD controls the emissions. The reason we're not as smoggy in California, in LA, as we used to be like in the 60s and 70s, is because South Coast AQMD. And they had a pretty exciting set of rules to really move us very quickly to electric appliances. And the gas industry came in and totally gutted them, and AQMD backed down and proposed much, much, much weaker rules that I think everybody assumed were going to pass, because we thought the exciting rules were going to pass. And the very, very, very weak rules failed a few days ago. And what I read, I don't know what Dan said because I didn't see his email, but what the reason I read the other day or today that the rules failed was because there were some board members cited threats of a federal lawsuit. So this is basically Trump, once again, just gutting our air pollution cleanup and our climate efforts. So this is
And
just terrible
speaking,
news, terrible news.
yeah. And speaking of which, so the second bullet point was intended to speak to just basically where the city stands on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal for the Berkeley ruling. So the latest development that we've been following on that was that the city, I wouldn't say backpedaled on it, but let's just say they took a step back as a result of the city attorney, and we've been having conversations with, what was the name of who we had a conversation with on that, Lisa? It was Kevin?
Oh, Jackson Gouze.
Jackson, yes, thank you. So
He's
so
with,
we're just,
he's a legislative person with Nithya Raman of CD4. Councilwoman Nithya
thank
Raman.
you. Yes, so just, continuing to weather a lot of this uphill battle with our efforts with building electrification. The very last thing is we're continuing our efforts with the resilient rebuild with Palisades. So, we're working on our strategies, and we've been having conversation with Tracy Park's office. The uphill battle with that is, I guess there was some misinterpretation, and I guess it just made us feel that, rebuilding resiliently didn't matter. So we're continuing conversation with Tracy Park's office. Lisa had a conversation with, it was Kevin and Tracy Park's office, right, Lisa?
Yes.
Yes. So we're definitely making headway on that. Long way to go, but yeah, we have quite a bit of challenges ahead of us, but continuing our work. Just as a reminder, our meetings are at 7 p.m. every third Wednesday of the month, and appreciate you listening to this long-winded update.
Well, let me say a couple things about both of those things, just to make sure everything is clear.
Sure.
The City of LA, we had a new building electrification ordinance. There was a lawsuit. The California Restaurant Association sued the city of Berkeley, and they won. So the city of Berkeley was not able to move forward on their new building electrification ordinance. And that made the city of LA's new building electrification ordinance illegal. So the city of LA could not move forward on theirs. So a week or two ago, we had to repeal ours. So now we're in a state of limbo, and we will not be able to move forward with ours. So we have to work on a new plan to incentivize new building electrification, but we will not be able to mandate it anymore in the city of LA. So that's very, very bad news. On the resilient rebuild permitting fast track, I'm gonna just make this very short. Tracy Park sent out an email saying that making it sound like she did not like new building electrification. We got them to clarify that and sound a little more encouraging, but she's a little complicated. But she did make it sound more encouraging in a couple of subsequent emails, and put out some resources about electrification, including ours. And we are hearing from the city of LA that their incentives for electrification in the Palisades should be available at the end of the summer. So we are hoping to work with them, with the city of LA, to help support that effort. I hope that was clear enough for folks. It might not have been, but I hope it was. Okay. Transportation. Muriel.
Hi, everybody. I hope everyone's having a nice Sunday evening. We recently had our meeting last Thursday. It's Electric came out to kind of, what do you call it?
And they're
spread
here,
the
or they were.
and they're here and they came. I saw.
Thanks for inviting us.
Of course. So Sam and Karen are here. Whatchamacallit? Sorry, I got. So they came to present. They're going to be doing. They're going to be rolling out their chargers in the Koreatown and South LA area. They're doing a little bit of a private pilot program with their. And you can chime in if you want.
Maybe we'll give it to them.
Yeah.
We're happy to. I promise I won't take long here, and we can take questions later if anybody has them, or we'll put our emails in the chat. So Karen and I are here. Thank you, Muriel, for inviting us to present before the committee. I'm with It's Electric. My name is Sam. I'm based in the West Adams neighborhood. And just appreciate all the work that the neighborhood councils do to advocate for the community. About It's Electric, so we are the world's first public EV charging company that is powered by buildings. And so that essentially means that we deploy curbside chargers that are powered by adjacent buildings, as opposed to, you know, a deep trench in the ground that connects directly to the utility. In return, we do a unique revenue share model with property owners, you know, so they can be single family homes, multifamily buildings, where we pay owners 20% of all the revenue generated at the charger. And so, as Muriel mentioned, we do have a grant through the California Air Resources Board and the LA Clean Tech Incubator, Lacey, to deploy our chargers specifically in Koreatown and South LA. As we know, Koreatown and many parts of South LA really lack private garages. And so, you know, with more EV adoption in those neighborhoods, we're just going to need a lot more public charging infrastructure. And so we're really here just to spread awareness about the opportunity. If you or anyone that you know is in these neighborhoods and is interested in signing up for potentially, you know, participating in this opportunity, getting a charger in front of your house, having it be powered by your home, learning anything else about our model, please let us know. Reach out to us. We'll put all of our information in the chat there. But we're also really looking for ideas as to how we can reach the community in the best way so that they can also take advantage of this opportunity. We've been reaching out to many neighborhood council districts and boards. We are speaking with the West Adams Neighborhood Council and hopefully attending the Wilshire Center one tomorrow, but welcome any other ideas, newsletters, activities, events, things that we can participate in just to help get the word out. But with that, we're also happy to take questions. We don't want to take up the time. I know it's really late. So appreciate you all letting us be here and for the presentation today also on microplastics, super important and slightly depressing issue, but I think we all we gain a lot from learning more about what we could do to prevent it and participate in action. So thank you all for the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was at my meeting on Thursday. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that it, Muriel?
Yes.
Okay, then trees, Joanne.
Hi, good evening. The next trees meeting is tentatively Saturday, July 26th on Zoom. You can email me. My email is at the bottom of this card. If you are not already on our list or you are interested in more information. The plan for this one is to open the meeting for your tree concerns. We intended to do that last time and our program took up the whole time, plus an extra half hour. So I apologize for that, but it was really an interesting meeting. We just had to let it continue because people were working on solutions. And it was a very active group, so I was pleased with that. And I might have a short guest presenter on the 26th. I'm still debating as to whether this presentation is appropriate. I want to call your attention to Council File 102468 S2, which has passed in committee, and it would get a report back from LAFD working with CFAC regarding the proposed state fire regulations. This 102468 S1 was just to accept the new fire hazard region map, and also to accept, of all things, the proposed state fire regulations. And we had a CFAC representative from CD12 complain about this because her councilman sponsored the bill, and they said, well, why should we accept something we don't know what it is? So he said, oh, it's still in flux. And so she got him to agree to this. Interestingly, the fire department and CFAC are on the same page. We've spoken to the brush clearance captain. So we're going to do this. We just need the blessing of the full city council, which we think will get the committee put it on consent. So there wasn't any real discussion about it. And I'm not actually asking for a neighborhood council CISs because I think it's going to happen too fast for that. But it's interesting that we were able to get this. There are fire preparation fairs being held around the city right now, and I went to one yesterday. And I, as an individual, because the Trees Committee hasn't really proposed to take a position on the state regulations, but I don't think we can, because NCSA doesn't take positions on statewide issues. So, but as an individual, I have an information sheet which I passed out about the proposed state regulations and just gave people a way of getting more information. So we have a flyer, and it can be used on an individual basis. We didn't table, we just walked around. Another member of the Trees Committee and myself, also acting as an individual, just walked around and talked to people and handed out our flyer. The next State Zone Zero Advisory Board meeting is all day on June 16th, and they have 2 more meetings on the 17th and 18th that are also all day. I will have more information about how to RSVP and what's going to be the agenda for these meetings tomorrow. And so I'm going to be sending this information to my Trees Committee mailing list. And if you would like to also receive it, just shoot me an email at trees@ncsa.la. And in the chat, I didn't put this in the chat, but I can. Public comments should go to public comments at bof.ca.gov. That's what they had up on their website. So you can send public comments if you have issues with the regulations. Many of us do. But as I said, we haven't taken an exact position on it because all the regulations are in flux, and second of all, it's a state issue. But we are trying to get our council people to talk to the state. They don't usually like to do that, but since this affects a huge amount of vegetation and trees in the city that would have to be removed, CFAC has taken the position that hydrated vegetation is okay and should be allowed, and trees should be allowed as long as they are also hydrated and should not be removed, regardless of species. And just as a side thing, we don't send out, Dunn doesn't send out tree removal notices anymore, so we don't know what trees are proposed to be removed. go to the Streets LA website, and you can just go to Urban Forestry's website and Google tree removal notifications, since you can't copy that from this. And you will see, you can search it by your council district or your neighborhood council district. If you need any help with it, just email me at trees@ncsa.la. And if you'd like to be on our list, same thing, same address. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we're ready to go to announcements. The first one I'd like to make sure that gets made is Phyllis, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, please make your announcement.
Okay, so on June 26th, that's a Thursday at 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning. Oh, and this is for Stop the Gondola.
Oh,
So
yes, introduce yourself.
I forgot. I'm Phyllis Ling. I'm with Stop the Gondola. I'm also the chair of the Historic Cultural North Neighborhood Council. But Stop the Gondola I'm doing in my own personal capacity. So we Stop the Gondola is having a rally at LA State Historic Park on Thursday, June 26th at 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning. It's to show, well, the state parks commissioners are coming for a visit that morning. So we're trying to get a lot of people out there to demonstrate uses of the park and people wanting to protect it, save the trees, save the park from the invasion of the gondola, the giant station at the entrance, flying only 26 feet over the hill in the green space in the park. So we're trying to get as many people out there as possible. And also I should mention an update from about a month ago is that about the lawsuit. So back when Metro approved the gondola project and the environmental impact report, shortly thereafter, there were 2 lawsuits filed. The first judge ruled on the side of the gondola in Metro, and the lawsuit was filed challenging Metro's approval. So then the first judge ruled in the project developer's favor, and then it was appealed. And the higher appellate court ruled in our favor on 2 points. One was they didn't consult with the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and the other was noise. They didn't adequately address noise impacts from construction. So basically, they've been ordered so a Metro is going to be ordered to reverse their approval decision on the project and the EIR, and that they'll need to do a supplemental EIR to address those issues. And at first we thought that this would put a lot of the project on hold for a while, but actually the developers are just deciding to move forward with everything, including the process with state parks to get their approval, which is a little bit, we're not sure how that's going to hold up, but I mean, they're going to push forward with trying to get state parks to approve the project, even though state parks is actually relying on that decertified EIR to do their outreach on the impacts to the park. So
it's not slowing things down, you don't think?
Not really. I don't think so. They still want to get parks approval by the end of the year, and then but still the city council process, we've heard that the RFP for this traffic study for Dodger Stadium has gone out. So that process could start very soon, and that process could take about a year. So it's still moving ahead, and that's why we're going ahead with our a rally in the park in about 2.5 weeks. So if any folks can come out, wear red t-shirts, or if you have the Stop the Gondola t-shirts, wear those. And we're just gonna, try to make it a positive thing. We're not even calling it a protest because we don't want it to, get too antagonistic or anything like that. It's kind of a positive rally to show our love for the park and to show the commissioners that people really care about it. But I'll put that in the chat. There's more info.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis.
Okay,
we're over time, so let's try to be quick. Charles.
Yeah, well, I want to tell everybody that LANCSA is teaming with Surfrider Ocean Friendly Gardens Group for a volunteer day at Westwood Greenway on Sunday, July 13th, 2025, 10 a.m. There'll be a tour and then volunteer weeding to support biodiversity. And second announcement I make, I'm going to put both these in the chat in just a second. Los Angeles Climate Reality Project is chapter meeting will be on Sunday, June 29th, 7 p.m. We're trying to really capture the moment here. So what we're going to be doing is putting together a panel to talk about advocacy at a time when the federal government is doing everything they can to be hostile to any environmental effort, rolling back decades of environmental work, and what we can do to, as advocates and as people who care about the world, try to push back in a way that actually gets some traction. So we're going to have all kinds of people on a panel to talk about that, even germane to the stuff that's going on in Los Angeles this weekend. So hope to see you all there. Please bring anybody you want now in the chat.
And to be clear, that July 13th thing, that is our monthly meeting for July. So our monthly July meeting is in person. Thank you, Charles. Mindy.
Yeah, so I want to invite everybody to an art exhibit that's going to be taking place at Tree People. And for transparency, I actually want to tell everybody it's actually my daughter who is the artist. But it is the art was actually inspired by the fires that we recently had and that we have on a continual basis here in Los Angeles. It's called Smoke on the Water. You can find the advertisement for it on the page, the events page at Tree People. And it's going to be in a couple of weeks. There's going to be an opening, which I'd like to invite everybody. It's a private opening. If you're interested, you can either get in touch with me. I can also send it to Lisa, and if you want, and we can forward the invitation to you. Like I said, it is a private opening, but it will be there for a couple of weeks, and there will actually be an artist talk one day on a Saturday. And I think it's just 40% actually of anything that is sold is going to go to the wildfire resilience fund that Tree People has right now. So more than anything, I just very quickly want to say it's just really important to have a dialogue right now, which art can do in a way that nothing else can, about the kind of city that we're living in right now with the fires and how we can really transform the city in a different way. So like I said, if you're interested in attending, just let me know or let Lisa know, and I can send you an invitation or go to the events page on Tree People.
Thank you, Mindy. I think that's so meaningful. Thank you. Alrighty, and please do complete an evaluation, and thank you everybody for coming and contributing. And I hope I feel weird not being there now. I hope everybody is okay, and I wish things were better than they are. And take care, and to be continued. Good night.
Bye, thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.